There's nothing plugged into.
I've got everything plugged in. Oh, I don't have this.
Video and audio plugged in there. That's it on the channel. Channel lock 3.
Secrets, and I believe that if you pass on what information you have, you'll always get something in return at a later date. That's basically how I operate. When I look around in the audience here, I see a lot of people that I know, and I know that they can actually turn better than me. So as soon as I'm finished, maybe they might want to come up and show us how to do it. But seriously, I'm going to show you how to make a litter box, which I've become recognised as making these pieces here, and I'm going to try to explain to you how I set up the litter box by putting some framework around the outside and how I turn it. I'm only going to turn the lid tonight. I'm going to talk about different finishes. I'm going to talk about sanding, the importance of sanding, and try to make things as easy as possible and as simple as possible. Because what happens, a lot of people make wood turning into a mystique, that it's hard to do. If you can follow certain procedures, you'll find that you'll be able to do it. Now, because I talk funny, even though I'm talking English the same as everyone else, and I talk fast, I would like you to listen slowly. And if I explain something to you, try to explain something to you, and you don't understand it, it's my fault, because I did not explain it properly. Right, now if you don't understand what I'm talking about, please put your hand up and make me explain it properly. Because that's how we learn. Don't sit there and be afraid to ask a question. Now, I'm going to, first of all, show you how I set up the little box that I've got here. Basically, I take a piece of wood, which is a good bit of wood that goes down the middle, and a waste timber on the outside of it, so we have a block. And this is the top and the bottom. There's glued on with regular white glue or yellow glue, as you PVA glue. I do not use hot melt glue here because it'll give away when it gets thin, and it does get down as thin as this is here. And because it gets thin, it can actually give away, so we have to have it to be a good glue joint. So we now got this together. I then mark the angle. The angle is incidental. It's something that I just worked on keeping it roughly consistent. So there, what I'm aiming to do is to end up with a disc that I can turn on the lathe. If I try to turn these square edges, which you can see in here, try to turn these square edges whipping around the outside, I'd break them. I couldn't sand them. I'd probably get my fingers hurt. But by putting a framework around the outside, it enables me to manoeuvre the shape that I can work. Now, we're talking about a small size here. I've turned up to 6 feet in diameter using the same principle. Using a square piece and working with green timber, and if the natural edge of the bowl went down here and the solid was around there, it means we'd have a gap down here. This would be glued onto the wood with a 4 Seasons adhesive glue, which is a glue that will glue dry wood to wet wood. And it would be generally PVA glue around here. So it's something that it doesn't matter what shape you are on the inside, long as you build up to make a framework round on the outside to make it into a disc, it'll spin for you. And it's safe to work. If you get very thin, obviously these bits can crack off where the glue is. If it's not a good glue joint in the first place, it'll give way. So it must be a good glue joint. When I'm gluing it together, I put glue on both surfaces of the wood before I put it together to make sure that it actually sticks. A lot of people, and because I'm working with end grain, here and here, if you don't put the glue into that surface, it's going to absorb in quickly and it won't really be a good strong joint. So we're going to actually cut this up and to actually have it so that the lid and the base will be on video there, so that it'll actually come together like a sandwich and be a pear. We have to turn this piece of wood around. Now if I brought that back over here, what would happen is it would actually be coming like this and it would look out of shape. It doesn't come back and be a perfect marriage to this, like a sandwich. If it was square, it would be a perfect sandwich. But because it's on the angle, it doesn't come back, this bit ends up coming down here like that. So to do that, we then go corner to corner on A, and we come down to the bottom here, and then we turn the back of this piece completely around so that that then becomes a sandwich, an equal sandwich. That corner there hits, and this corner will hit back over here. Now, there might be some times while I'm talking here, you might have no idea what I'm talking about. Sometimes when I'm trying to explain it, I'm not sure I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's how we go. Now, to have it so that when the bowl twists around like this in the lid, and it actually overlaps by about 3/4 of an inch here, and when it twists, comes back level. To do that, we go corner to corner to find the centre. We then measure 3/8 of an inch and create a new centre. And we measure 3/8 of an inch and create a new centre on the other side. Then we put a block of wood, which is our waste block, onto here into that new centre. And this is very important, that the centre of that is also the centre of the block of wood that I put on here. So we now the block on here and new centre, and put some wood around the outside to build it all up to make it into a perfect circle. And then my faceplate actually goes onto that. And that's why I have a screw centre, so that it is in the centre of my faceplate. If I don't, when you turn it, what will happen is that the pieces will be actually out of line. We got that on the video, can people see?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Am I in the right place?
It's what?
Right, so it'll get out of line. So that's why it's very important to keep it in the centre so that it will spin around. At least one side will be right. And that will come around to make it 3/4 of an inch. Now I'll pass this around, and when you have a look at it, you'll probably be able to see it a little bit better. So that's one way of taking one board and making up what I've got here. So the next way is to take a piece of wood, which is, for example, 3 inches high here, and cut it in half. Put your block on this side, your block on the other side, and it's perfectly matched as far as grain is concerned. This way here, you don't get a perfect match on the grain because you have to turn one upside down. If I had a block that was, say, 5 3/4 by 4 3/4, cut on the angle, that would be, the lid and the base would be exactly the same as going that way. Right now, I'm going to have to keep talking a little bit because I can't work without a banjo.
We have it. We have it.
They've got it? Oh, right, okay. So we then put the faceplate on the piece. Here, all the faceplates in America here do not have a centre screw in the middle of the faceplate and have screw holes around the outside. Now I find that running a centre screw, having a centre screw there and putting the screws in there stops any vibration that I'm likely to get. Now you can work off a screw and do a good turning, but if you're going to scrape, which is what I'm going to show you how to do, you will tend to get that little bit of vibration. So the piece has been glued up. You'll notice that it's not glued up completely even as far as heights are concerned here. I've used second-hand pine around the outside because it's softer to work with than putting hardwood around there. I try to avoid knots, any knots in the wood, because if you have a knot coming through the wood here and it's thin, you're going to actually turn in grain on the knot and it'll break. So I try to avoid that as well. And the piece is now ready to do the turning. Did you say we have the tool rest there?
Both.
Anyone breaks those, they pay for them.
No bouncing.
Sorry, I should have explained this. I have, so that I can get the face plate in the centre, I'm working off that face plate there. I use this little piece here that just fits into my hole and that lines my face plate up. Because if you try to line your face plate up by eye, you put a screw in, it slips all over the place and you have trouble.
It's really heavy.
Right, now I'm going to turn this. I've got this a variable speed lathe here and it's going at a slow speed. When I'm working, I like to work with a glove on my hand because I find the shavings that hit the back of my hand all the time create a problem, and I have holes in the end of the glove too so that the shavings fall out at the end as you're working. You don't have to stay. Right, now do we have any questions at this stage up to where we are here? I didn't explain it that well.
Tell me you're going to make a test.
But,
Tell me about
you all have to sit a test at the end of the night too, just to make sure you're listening. Right now, I'm using a bowl gouge, which is a deep fitted gouge here. It's been ground back. It's the angle that I feel comfortable with working. I'm just going to do a straight and tight cut with the I just checked to see if that face was true. And when I did that, I went up to the back of my nail like this. If there's any splinters, I'm not going to get them in my finger. If I go this way, a splinter's there, it goes in your hand. You might do it once, you might do it twice. If you're a real slow learner, you'll do it 3 times. But Now because the wood is fairly uneven at this point, I'll try to smooth it up as much best I can to make it run true, balance it so that when I can increase in speed to get a better cut. I'm actually doing the lid of the bowl. I work on jam fit carriers here, and as I'm making the lid, I've got to obviously fit the lid in, the groove into here, which is it's got to go into here. So when I made this, so that I can put it into a jam fit carrier and make it easy to do, I have a piece that comes along like this, and exaggerating, it's cut back like this. And the idea being that when I put a jam fit carrier, which is a wooden block, which is going in here like this, it'll be a lot easier to fit. Now that's exaggerating how much I've undercut. If I made the cut so it comes down like this, into a nice even curve, and shaped it away, whatever it was, when I try to make a carrier, I've got to make a carrier which is almost exactly the same shape as what that is, and it's a lot harder to do. So, as I said, this is more than what it should be, but just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to do. That's in the bowl. And when I do the lid, we have the situation where looking at the top, top of it comes along like this. It'll come up here, and that will be a vertical cut, and of course that'll be cut down in here, and I'll be making a piece that actually fits in like this into my waste block. So that's going to be a jam fit. My drawing's not too good there, but that's what I'm aiming to do. Now obviously I have to take a measurement from this piece here to transfer it onto there. And I found calipers like this, which if you're able to get round to any of the stores, you'll find are fairly cheap. I paid $11 for these at one of these Tool Mart stores here, and they're excellent for this sort of thing. And it makes it a lot easier to work. Now when I'm marking out the size here, obviously if I don't go on centre, what will happen is that I'll get a bigger dimension across here than I need. And I only mark with the left-hand side of the calipers. If I mark on the right side, I end up wearing the calipers back here, and I'm not comfortable with that. Now, when I'm going to make this cut, in there I'm going to use a square and a tool. First of all, we have to work out the depth of this, and rather than bring my tailstock up and put a drill in there, I have a hand drill like this. It's easy just to start off with a point like that and go straight in, and you've got your bowl started. Whereas if you try to start into bare wood, your drill will tend to run around a little bit, you won't get the depth. So I'll just check that that's all right. So we're now cleaning the inside of this out. Cut. I'm cutting through the centre now. When you use the bowl gouge in this particular cut, if you put a lot of weight in the left hand, you'll find you'll get all ridges on the cut. If you keep once you start your cut, keep it just steady and let the bevel slide around the shape you're going to use in the cut. At this point I'm just worried about getting it out. Now I'm going to try and repeat roughly this profile back into this part here so it matches up. So right now we've got that roughed into line, a little bit rough here as the word says. I'm not concerned about the quality of the cut. I'm going to show you how to clean it up with a round nose scraper. And here's my scraper, and in that scraper there's a couple of things we need to clarify. First of all, there's a lot of people who've written books. I don't think there's anyone in here that I know of who's written books about wood turning. And one of the things they suggest that when you use a scraper, you must let the burr do the cutting. And I would like to refute that and to say that that is not the case. There's no such thing as a burr doing a cutting if you put that on the grinding wheel and actually sharpen that. Now let's just look at it a little bit. We have the shape of the scraper. In my case, it's shaped something like that. The side of the scraper is around about 45 degrees with a concave in there because that's the shape of the wheel that I'm working with, whether it be an 8-inch or 6-inch wheel. Now, if I use a 60 grit grinding wheel and I grind this here, as I grind it, a burr comes over here, doesn't it? Tell me if I'm not saying the right thing here, because I beg to be corrected if I'm wrong.
Burr's on the top.
Burr's on the top and it comes over there. Now when we look at that, where is the weakest part of that bit of a burr that we pull over there? Right on the solid material, and there's a weak part. As soon as we put it into the wood, what happens to the burr? Breaks off. So it's not the burr doing the cutting at all. What is left, if we use a 60 grit wheel, is this serrated edge around here. Now if I want to get a finer cut, I'll use a 120 grit wheel, and I've got that coming around here again, and the serrations this time will be smaller. And a like little sawtooth on the end of the tool. If I go one step further and take a slipstone and go across the top of that and then bring it up, I bring up a little bit of a burr, but I bring up a very sharp edge and actually get it finer. But the edge that I create, and because it's such a point here, as soon as I touch hard wood, after about 2 or 3 passes, the tool is blunt. Now, when you sharpen this tool, you need to sharpen your grinder first. You need to sharpen your grinder first. Now, to explain what that means, is that when I come to the grinding wheel over here, and you look at the wheel here, it's starting to get dirty, and it needs cleaning up. I need to get the grit to actually expose itself so that it gives me a nice sharp edge to grind the surface on my tool. And the only way you can do it successfully is with a diamond, piece of industrial diamond, or a diamond impregnated dressing stone. And if this wheel is 120 grit, according to the manufacturers, if I go across that fast, I can make it cut at 100 grit. If I go across very slowly, I can make it cut at 140 grit. Because I don't break the surface in such big chunks. And then, if I've got the angle consistent here that I can put the tool on the tool rest and come round, I then create my bevel, my
Burr.
burr. My burr on the top. Now, where the confusion arises with burrs and hooks and so on is that when we dealt with carbon steel, we could actually put a hook onto the tool. When we deal with hard, high-speed steel, the steel is so hard we can't do that. So we have to have a good, sharp edge. Now, a hook for a cabinet scraper, where you lay it over and you pull a nice shaving off the surface, is enables you to get a smooth surface. You can't get that hook onto your high-speed steel, because once you start to move the metal over, you lose the real crisp edge that you're working with. Anyone want to argue about it? Come on, come on, Denver, argue with me. Because, can you see where I'm coming from? Now, first of all, the grinding wheel must be sharpened. Now, the next thing is the position of your grinding wheel. If my grinding wheel is over here where the fan is, and I'm working away here, I can convince myself this tool is still sharp enough if I have to take 4 steps over to do the grinding. And I'm very easily convinced. But if it's right behind me, I can actually turn around, sharpen it, and be back into action. Now, a lot of people worry about the fact that when they sharpen their tool, they end up losing all this money they've spent on the tools. Also, when they try to sharpen the grinding wheel and they see all this dust going down on the ground from the grinding wheel, they're costing them money. Please spend it. Right? Please spend it, because it makes it so much easier for you to do a good job if your tools are sharp. Blunt tools means poor workmanship, and then you blame your tools. It's not the tool's fault at all. It's your fault because you didn't sharpen the tool.
Vic,
Sir.
Vic, I'll stir the pot a little bit. A barber doesn't sharpen the old time barber that used to shave with a straight edge.
Yep.
He never sharpens his edge into the stone. He always pulls it away from the edge.
Right.
And some of us sharpen our tools with it
Upside down.
the other way around.
Right.
And I think we get a sharper edge and a stronger edge doing it that way.
It really depends on how hard you're pushing onto the surface of that. Turning it upside down means it's a bit more difficult to do. It's against this way. I mean, ideally you want your wheel running that way. Running the opposite way, so it goes up, and you can do it that way, where you've got a support to work on. When you go inside, it's going into a wedge all the time.
I use a different grinder than the second. I use a different setup.
A slower grinder? Yeah. Any other points on that at the moment? Right, now, I'm going to use the scraper to scrape this smooth. I'll get try to get it one step away. I need to cut this recess here for the shoulder of the piece, and I'm going to use a square-edged tool. And push by cutting. Now, the tool I'm using here is traditionally a square-ended scraper, and what it is, it's been ground like this, and due to a process of grinding, it's ended up something looking like this. On the side of it, it's around about 45 degrees. On the end of it, looking at it, the section is such that it comes back underneath there like that. That's the top of the scraper. So that these points here are proud. Now I'm cutting in across the fibres of the wood here. And to get a clean cut going in that way, I'm actually using the front of the tool right at that 3 point and going in. And when I do that cut, I end up getting a very, very clean cut around there that requires little sanding. If I brought that tool in this way and brought it in there like that and pushed it onto that shoulder and let the wood come around there, what would happen in that position where the fibres of the wood are running like this, here like this, while it's cutting there, it's going to cut at 45, it's fine. When it's in that position, I'm cutting end grain. It's very difficult to do it. When I'm cutting there, I'm cutting back into a 45, and I'm going to get trouble. Cut there smooth because the fibres are running up and down. Cut there, the 45 goes with me. It's easy to cut. End grain problem, cutting back into 45 and get a tear. So that's what I'm aiming to do with that square end tool. I will pass it around in a moment. I'll just check and see if that fits on. Doesn't? Yeah. Always easier to take some off and put it back on. Now, as this little box is such that I expect people to put things into it, it is important that the actual lid comes off the base with one hand. Now, it's very nice to have a good snug fitting lid. When you pick it up, you pick up the bottom as well. But what about the piece you've got in your hand to put in the box? So I like to see it be loose enough. This is too tight at the moment, so I need to make it a bit looser. Just check this, because if you don't get this right now and you haven't checked it, what happens when you go to do it, that's it. Now, that's how loose I'd like to have it for this operation. Now again, to straight the inside of here to get it nice and smooth. You can probably see on the monitor how rough it is, and I have it scrape downhill. In other words, down to the bottom of the bowl, not from the inside. And using my scraper just in the horizontal mode like this. Something loose causing this vibration. You shouldn't be having this vibration here like this. Now it's either the bearings are shot, or I haven't fixed my face plate properly, which I'm convinced I have, because I put enough screws into it. And sometimes you can be too far out from the head that causes that. But I'm sure we're going to work out alright, just have to go a little bit slower with the cut. Vibration and tearing I'm getting, it means that my sandpaper is going to have to be a little bit more thorough in the course of grade. Can everyone hear me at the back? Right, now we'll just clean this up here. I've cut down here. Now I could do this with a gouge, but because of the way it's laying there, I've got to get the gouge around here, cut down to there to the bottom. I have to get the gouge and come back and cut down there to the bottom. And then to make that marry exactly, it's a little bit harder. But by having a scraping process the way I'm doing it here, I can marry that curve up very quickly. Now, if you look at the type of shaving that's coming off here, you see it's almost a long fibre, and the amount of weight that I'm actually putting on here onto the surface of the wood is very light. To give you an idea of how light I'm going, right, and that's really, when you scrape, that's what you want to do. You don't want to change the profile of the wood by pushing at it in such a way that the chisel is going to go, or the scraper is going to get caught. If the wood is thin, of course, you've got more problems. Now I'm pressing a little bit harder here to get the wood off quickly. So to finally get that cut. You may also have read in the book that if you're scraping a piece of wood, that the handle should be higher than the tip that you're cutting with. In other words, up like that. Now that's fine if you've got one curve to work with, like inside here. But when you've got a multiple curve like this, and to be down here like this and to come out there, it's much harder than it is if the tool is straight like this. So, now the reason that I feel comfortable in scraping, and I try to teach people how to scrape, is I never knew how to use a bowl gouge. So you had to learn to get the best finish you could using a scraper, and you learn to have a good edge on the tool was very, very important. Right, now I've got that clean enough there. I don't know how close you can get on the bond. We'll see if that finishes there.
That's as close as I can go.
Might show all the mistakes. Right, now I need to remove the back of this here and get down to that I can have a thickness in here, feel how thick it is, before I put it in the jam fit chuck. Because if I don't, I'm going to be working blind, as you might say, because I don't know, if I try to cut it now, I would never get it right. So I've got to remove the back of this, which I'm going to do now. I now take a 1/8 parting tool to get right down inside here, because what I'm doing, I'm undercutting in the surface here, and I can't do that with a gouge successfully. So I find using a parting tool, now, if by chance your fingers are not quite long enough here to get this thickness in here, you can't get your hand round, and working like that is not normally that successful. You can use a regular pair of calipers. These are odd-shaped calipers as such, because when you're working a small bit, you can get in with a little bit like I've got here to check what the size is. And that's what I've got, about half an inch there, which is too thick at the moment. I need to get down somewhere around about a quarter of an inch in there.
Okay.
I'm wearing a helmet for this side because the shavings will come up in my face. When I'm working in my own shop, I wear a Regal Dustmaster DM4, which has a backpack filter comes over your face and the air's filtered and so on. I find that at the end of the day, you blow your nose, pardon me, but it's much cleaner at the end of the day when you have a filter on all the time than it is when you don't. And you feel 100% better. In Australia, they've just proved that eucalypt, which is or red gum, as most people would know it, is killing 5 people a year. Actually killing them from the fungus spores that are in the wood. And 20 people, this has been documented, with 20 people who are actually being affected and have to be treated. And they go to hospital and have intravenous injections to try and get back on, get rid of this spore that's from the red gum. And this has mainly been timber cutters and people who have been cutting the railway ties, or sleepers as we call them, to go under the railway lines. And it is in wood that has started to decay, where the problem is been identified. Now, I figure if we know about that wood, what don't we know about all the others? Now, you should be wearing a mask for dust at least. I find at the end of every demonstration I do, I don't feel 100% because of all the dust that I've taken in. Now, I worked on a wood the other day at Fort Collins. It was so bad that 5 or 6 rows of people started sneezing. And we didn't know what the name of the wood was because we couldn't spell it, so we called it alphabet wood.
Vic, can you turn that around and show them the backside of how you're using that parting tool? Because I can't get around there with the...
Just a sec.
Yeah, can you unscrew that and just... Not everybody can see what you're doing. Sorry.
Right, now what's happening at the back here, I'm coming in here with a parting tool like this. Now, I can't go in there with a gouge because I'm going to get caught on one of the wings, and I go in with a 1/8 parting tool, not a 1/4 inch parting tool. If you go in with a 1/4 inch parting tool, I've got so much wood on top of the tool that it wants to keep catching me and pushing me up. Whereas with a 1/8 parting tool, I've got more control over the cut that I'm making. Right? So I still have to take some more off here. Just check that again. See what size we've got. Still too thick there. Too thick here, which I can fix later on. Right, just take some more out of in there and that's better. It's about 1/4 inch at the moment. By the time I clean all that up, it'll be suitable to work through. So that's good. Now the next part that I have to do is something that most people hate, and that is sanding. If anyone who does like sanding would like to come out here and show me how to do it, I'd welcome that. Now I've only got a few grades here today, up to 2500 grit. And I'm going to go through all those grades to sand this. And a lot of people say, why do you have to go through all those grades when you've got a smooth finish at about 400? If I want the surface of the wood to be of good quality, I need to make sure it's sanded. It's like painting a wall. If you don't prepare it, you don't get a good finish, no matter how good the paint is, how expensive the paint is, it doesn't matter. Now I've got bits of paper that have been torn up and linen back paper, and I can move it around and do all that, open it up, and the paper still stays, the grit still stays on the paper. If you have paper that is too hard, it makes it hard to follow the curves that you're dealing with. And I'm going to sand this and go through the grades. I'm starting at 150 grit, and putting a fair bit of pressure on this to sand the surface, moving it around. And before I move on to 180 grit, I'm now going to have a look at the surface and see if there are any bits that I should get out with a coarser paper. I may have to go back to 120, but if I do have an area that's not satisfactory, I can do that. Another way of doing this would be to use a handheld rotary sander. This is more for bowls than it is for something this size, but and I can move around. Now, the advantage of the handheld rotor sander over an electric one is that when you put the sander on the work, it will actually spin like that. It spins around, and when you come back the other way, it spins in reverse. Now, when you do that with a drill or an angle drill with just a regular head in like this continues to spin the same way all the time. When you come back and do this back out here, because it's spinning the same way, it actually puts scratches around it. Now I can use 80 grit on that and end up with scratches. I can use 80 grit with this and you can't see the scratches. But you get to finish like 120. Now that's the way in which I find this works a lot better, and it's quieter as well. Right now, you may also notice I had a bit of leather behind the sandpaper so that it doesn't burn my fingers. Now, I've got that in position like this. I've got the lathe, at this stage it's going too fast because what's happening, it's not giving the paper a chance to cut the surface of the wood. If you slow it down, it'll cut the surface and won't heat your paper up as much, and also your paper will last a lot longer. If I take that leather away and put my fingers there like that, my fingers get hot straight away. I put the palm of my hand there with more even distribution, also, excuse me, it gets hot. Put the leather there and work like that, it doesn't get hot between the leather and the paper. So, all I know that it works, it doesn't burn your finger. Could I drink water please? In the back or something? Right, so we're just going to stand the outside of this. And I'm moving the paper about all the time. That's 180 grit, now 240.
Oh, it is.
Knowing how well I bleed when I cut my finger, I always bring band-aids. And what I did, I cut it on the back of the work on the sharp edge, so I really should have softened off.
You dropped it right in front of you.
Right, now I'm on 320 grit paper now. Now, a lot of people suggest that if you have to sand your work, you're not a good wood turner. Well, I must fit into that category because I always sand my work. And there are some woods you can get away with nearly not sanding it, but to get a really smooth finish that we can be proud of, and we can have magnifying glasses that you actually put on your eyes and have a look at it, you'll soon decide that you don't get a good finish unless you sand it. So just have a look at this, see where we're at. Coming along all right, I'm up to 360 grit now.
Did you want water?
funny noise going on here. I'm not certain what it is. But, we'll press on. 400 grit now. And I don't have to spend a lot of time with these grits because what I'm doing, I'm working on the principle, I'm climbing a ladder, going from step by step by step. So with a 150 grit mark, so there, I get the 180 grit papers and take it out. And the 220, 240 grit takes out the 180. And the 320 takes out 240. And that's the principle I'm working on. And I'm now on to 500 grit, and this is regular paper. Now when you have your sandpaper like these little squares that I've got here, you do not cut them up. You always tear them up, because if you cut them up, you end up with a very, very sharp edge that if you run it across your finger, that you can actually cut your finger. And when you're working here with that sharp edge, sometimes the edge of the paper comes in contact with the wood and puts your score into the wood, and you wonder how it got there. It's actually from the sharp edges of the paper that is where it's come from. Now, when I'm getting this grade here, if I've got any lines at all that appear to be in the wood, I'll go with the grain, try and get rid of those. I'm now on 800, I've got 4 more grades to go. And this is wet and dry paper, use dry. I'm not using the leather behind it now, just simply because I'm not leaving it there for long enough to get hot. And the lathe is travelling at a slow speed. I also number the backs of the paper here because it's much easier to identify the grade of the paper, and the makers never put the numbers in the right place anyway, so I'm not sort of really happy with people like that. And you want paper that's flexible too. You don't want stiff paper again. Right, I'm going to 2,500 grit, it's the last one. It's reasonably shiny at this point, but I'm going to approach it with a different finish. And what I've got here is a traditional wax, which is a canuga and beeswax mixture, and it is quite a clear wax on the inside, and it gives a very good finish on your work. And then I'm going to mix with that traditional wax what they call rotten stone, which is an abrasive type cutting powder, and put that under the surface of the wood. And I'm going to put it on as if you're polishing the car. Put it on and you polish it off. And you know how if you don't want the polish that you put on your car to cut the paint right away, what you want to do is just clean the gunk off the top of it. So that's what we're aiming to do at this point. The other alternative is you buy the mixture that's already made up. It's called Ultra Shine. It's a mixture of the traditional wax and this rotten stone. I personally like the two independent and mix my own. And to do that, this is one that you buy mixed up. I'll show you how the one is done when you using the traditional wax. And that is, you just put the wax like that on the piece of rag, put it into your rotten stone like that, and then rub it onto the surface. Now, when you're doing this, it's very important to work on the theory that you did not pay for the wax, you did not pay for the rotten stone. Please put something on the wood. Like that you mean it, because what happens, you're so mingy about putting it on, you don't put enough on, because you paid for it. And it's really important that you do get enough on there to make it work. And put it on with the lathe stop, as against most finishes you apply while the lathe is travelling. The polish that I'm using is available from Penn State Industries in Philadelphia and Craft Supplies in Provo, Utah at this very point. And it's made in Australia by a wood turner, and it's become a very, very popular finish. It's easy to use, and it is, as I said, it is quite a significant finish. There's one thing I forgot to do. If you'd like to pass this around and have a look at it, you can do. I forgot to level off the face of this on the top edge here to get a nice clean, just pass it. Yes. Using a pad like I've got here, with grades of paper, 280, then I've got to 360, and I'm going straight to 600, and I've now cleaned the surface of that up. And got a nice sharp corner, because you tend to round over a little bit when you sand. And I keep that on a cork block and keep it together. Now, with the same bit of rag that I actually put that on with, I increase the speed. Put a fair amount of pressure onto the surface of the wood, and then go a new piece of rag, a little bit of rag, and just clean off any that may be still there. And now that's cleaned the surface up and given me a reasonably smooth finish. And no lines around here. If I did have lines, which would be should be unlikely, but if I ever happen to do that, take your rag with the that I'll put it on with, and just go backwards and forwards over the surface and get it off. Now then there's another finish can go straight onto the wood, or the process that I've just gone through, and this is called shallow wax cream. And again, you can go over top of this like so. And again, polish the surface of this with the rag that you put the wax on with, watching you don't burn the corners of the wood because of the pressure. Now, why I like this finish is that I'm virtually finished this part of the bowl now. That's it. I don't have to go through a lot of process of putting caps of oil on, putting sanding sealers on, and all sorts of things. And there's the finish. Now what I did, there are no tricks at all in what I did. All I did is went through a process of sanding, which anyone can do, made sure it was nice and smooth, and put the finish on. And I think if you can follow that through, you're going to find it turning a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. Usually what tends to get... What I put the last piece on? The first one is virtually the way it's made, with a rotten stone in, is actually cutting the surface and gives me a dull finish. The second one is one that goes on top of this, or goes straight onto raw wood, which I'm going to do on this side, and still gets a good finish. It wasn't. Bonnie will tell you that, it wasn't. Truly. It's amazing what those cameras tell lies. They don't believe it when you see that. But, so, as I said, I'm going to go show you a different way on the other side that we'll do it. Where was I talking about just before that?
Where's that?
What was I talking about just before Warren asked me the question? Lost my train of thought, sorry. Alright, now I'm going to part this off and turn it around and put it into a carrier and turn the Right, now before I go any further, I need to identify how thick this is here in terms of from the top to the top of this, and it's much too thick. Now what I'm using here are these calipers that have a dial on them. And what they were originally used for is the Kenny Craig weight chip and all this, you know, see how fat you are? It tells you how much is there and your muscle to see how much fat you have there. They're really, athletic departments use them a lot to test their players, see what their weight is in muscle. But they are probably the most used tool that I have in terms of work like this for working. Because I can see exactly what a number is here, whereas when I'm doing this and looking at a measurement, I've got to guess that it was the same all the way through. And it's a lot harder to see with these calipers. Pardon me?
I've never seen it.
You'll probably find any place that deals with athletic departments because that they do for the training of the footballers and the athletes to see what their muscle is.
Ah, fat.
Fat, yeah, fat. Didn't you? Here, come here. It's all right, I'm talking a different language, it doesn't matter. It's like as we get older, we can't see, so we have to wear glasses and get bright lights. We can't hear, or sometimes we can hear the selective hearing part, we can hear when it suits. And and other times we don't understand what the person's talking about. Right, now I'm just going to clean the face of this up here so that I can put this in as a geometry carrier, which was on the board before. I'll take the measurement across here and transfer that to the wooden block. Make sure that I'm working on centre. If not, you need to mark with your left leg here of the caliper and lift the right leg up a little bit. Now using my squaring tool, I'm going to cut a recess there. Now this has to be at least as deep as what the shoulder is here, and because I've got a straight cut, the nails being used as squaring tool to go in there. If I went in with a parting tool to do this cut, as I go in, the bottom of the parting tool has to be shifted out like this and you're cutting sideways. You go in there with a skew, and you're coming in like this, the bottom of the skew starts to hit, and you have to tip the skew up so you can get a nice straight cut. So that's one of the advantages of the squaring tool that I have. place, but they're not quite. Right now, when I do this cut now, what I cut off this side, I'm also going to cut off that side. So we have to consider this. There's only a small amount that I need to cut off. Now I could cut too much off this, and there's a couple of ways that we can overcome that. Let's see how we go. Right, fortunately that fits. Right, now that's not really as tight as I'd like it. It could just be a little bit tighter. Now to tighten it up at that level, I can take some chalk and just go around the inside here with chalk and rub that on there like that, and you'll see how tight it is when I'm going to put it in. See how tight it is? And just with the chalk. If not, use a tissue and do not fold the tissue more than 4 times. If you do, you start again and make another jam fit. You're too far away. Because what it does, not only does it sort of expand the hole this way, it pushes the piece out from the carrier, and therefore you haven't got very much actually in the hole. So, just need to touch that. We've now got the piece swinging around here and going to be in place. And I'm going to just clean up. Well, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit here just so that it is running true. And I'm going to use a waste piece of dowel, and what I've done here, I've cut a slight curve into the piece, and the centre down this end that goes onto your tailstock. And then I've glued a piece of leather onto that piece here, so that when I push that on the wood, I'm not going to damage the wood. And here's one that's actually finished and I've been using it. So I'm just showing you what that is. I'm going to bring the tailstock up here. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is really for insurance, so that it doesn't come off the lathe when I put pressure on here with the tool, which I'm going to do in a minute. And I'm going to take a small scraper this time. And the idea of the small scraper, so when I present it to the wood in the scraping mode, I'm not going to be taking a lot of timber off, therefore not putting a lot of torque onto the wood, and therefore not giving a chance maybe to break. Whereas if I get a big scraper in there and have a large area being caught, it's just going to go against it and make it hard to actually cut. I'm going to increase the speed a little bit now. Just a small tool wrist there. smaller tool rest, I can also get a situation where I'm working over top of the T of my tool post, which means I've got more support. If I've got a big tool rest I'm working on the end of it, especially if you've got a 3/4 inch spindle, you're going to get possible trouble. Like that, because the wood is thin, I'll use my hand behind the work here. To do the work. John, what time do you want to stop? 9:15. 9:15? Right. I won't finish this in time, but I'll go through. I've increased the speed of the load a little bit here to help me get a better finish. I should be working on the cut, should be actually on the centre of the centre line here across here. But at that point before I put it too high. What I need to do with the top here is to make sure that the thickness of this is not the same all the way through. Because if I make it the same thickness all the way through, I've got to make it right. So if I keep it, the thickness out here is different from there to there to there, it doesn't matter if I'm a little bit out. But I must be out far enough to make it look like I meant it. Right? But if I had it in such a way that it was a 16th of an inch there, and I had a 16th of an inch there, and it was 3/32 of an inch over here, it's going to show up and it's going to be very obvious. So you make it far enough away that you're meant to make it wrong. The same as when you put circles in the bottom of your bowl here, you always put them at different distances apart. You try to put them the same distance, they have to be the same. So make them a different size so you can get away with it. Now I'm going to work on the thickness here, and at the moment it's not far away from what I've got here, just so I need a bit more in there and I've got it right. I'm going to pass the squaring tool there. Those things that are going around the room are actually boomerangs too. They come back, like in Australia, throw them back. Please. Now, what I was talking to you about before was the size of the lid of the piece, or the thickness of it. It should be thinner than the base. The top of the lid should always be lighter in appearance, in weight, than what the base is. That's why you have 1/3, 2/3 and things like that. Right, we've just about got that done. There's just a little thing still. And I'll take it away and I'll finish off the top. you've got glue in here, often when you're working in this small area, the glue starts to climb or build up because it gets soft and gets a lump, and it'll pull a piece out of the carrier. So I've got glue here now, but you need to watch that. Now, a lot of people have accused me of things that have happened in the shape that I'm making here, want to know how I know what shape to make it. But I was even in an article in an Australian magazine. They didn't call it square inch littered boxes, they called it boob boxes. I thought that was a little bit of an insult to the ladies. But, right.
Draw a picture of that scraper up there.
Pardon me?
What's the curve of the scraper?
Oh, it's
Oh, that one.
just a very soft curve here.
Was just a
Hold it
small
right by the,
Yeah.
hold it right by the tool rest. Right there we go. And turn it on its side. Turn it on its side. Can you see that? You can't see it in the video?
In the video?
That's as close as it'll go. Oh, here we go.
Through the range.
Here, hold it in front of there again. I got it closer. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Here they are coming round. Okay, now, the process that I go through here is, as we have to finish in 4 minutes, is that I would sand this through the grades. The next thing, to get a smooth finish, I use this denatured alcohol. And I'd rub that all over the surface after I've gone through to my 2500 grit paper. Then I would get a match or a lighter and light it. So anyway, so it catches fire. And that expands the fibres of the wood enough that you'll find it'll be quite rough and you'll have to go around it again to finally sand it. Then I would put the shallow wax cream, which is around the room, directly onto the surface and polish it up. After that, I would take it out of the carrier and then I would cut around here with a bandsaw, then put it onto a belt sander and sand the edges of the piece so it's nice and smooth. Then go over and sand it with a block of sandpaper to get it smooth and put the shallow wax cream around there and polish that up. So I've now got the shallow wax directly onto the surface. Someone asked me why did I want to put it on before when I'd done it the other way. This is the other way of doing it. Then I would look at the surface and see what's happening. The nut inside's got loose. Then I would proceed to polish the piece up using a system that I have that goes into a chuck. Just give me another 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry? It's a French polishing system that they use to raise the fibres of the wood. And what you do, by putting the denatured alcohol on there and the heat which is generated from when you light it, it lifts the fibres and you sand those fibres off. As against when you put the finish directly on, that tends to lift them up marginally. It's a French polishing trick to get a surface on the tabletop absolutely nice and smooth and flat. Like now, to finish off my piece, I use this polishing system which goes into the chuck, like this, and this is a swan's down mop on the outside. Just to show you how this has been made, it has a bolt that goes through there. It's a 1/2 inch roll coach screw, or coach bolt, that's going through this solid bit of wood and into this plate that I've got here. I can tell you now from experience that if I tried to put that straight in there with some lock nuts on the top of it, when this bends like this and swings around like that, it moves your lathe across the room very quickly. Right? So my first experience thinking I knew all the answers, I just put it in like this. Then I realised I had to make a sleeve of wood to do the same thing. Now to make that sleeve, you put your piece in the chuck, you drill your hole through. 99% of the time you drill your hole through, the hole will run off, margin. Will actually go off. So what you do then is we have to make the outside even to the inside of the piece. And to do that, we turn 2 little pegs like this here, and you put them into the hole like that, put it between centres, and now turn the outside to make it run through to the inside hole that we may have drilled off. Then you also need to undercut here and undercut there with a parting tool so that it actually sits down and hard up on there and hits down underneath here. Now that screws on here now like this. Now it is better to use a machine bolt that is a bolt that has been machined thread on the end as against a roll bolt, which is like these coach screws. I don't know what you call them here, they're different. Carriage bolt, right? The carriage bolts are rolled, in other words, and the thread is not completely even in terms of the running through to the spindle, whereas when it's machined it is. They cost about 70 or 80 cents more, but it's worthwhile getting a machine bolt. So that screws in here. And then I proceed to polish up the piece that I've got. Now I've got another bowl that I've done here, and I've put some traditional wax which you've got going around the room over the surface before we started it tonight. Now when I polish this on the mop, it's very important that I wear gloves to do the polishing. Now even though I'm going to get the wax on the fingertips of the gloves, here like around here, I do not leave any marks on the surface, but if I let my hand take this as I polish the surface of this, I'll end up having marks all over from my fingers. Well, I really should go up another speed. Basically, it will still do it. And I'll just polish up the surface of the piece here like this, and those who are nearby can see how much that's starting to lift just using that polish. Now if I take my gloves off now and run my fingers across the surface, I'll have no marks on the surface, but if I leave it and try and work on there with this heat that's generated from the mop onto here, you'll end up leaving fingerprints on it. So I don't know what it is. They say it's some acid that's in your fingers or alkalis or whatever it may be that affects it. but it only seems to affect the surface when the heat is generated from the polishing heat. And that's basically how I finish all my work. This is water resistance, not waterproof. Now I could pour water in there and in a few minutes pour it out of there and you wouldn't know where I've been with the wax just going around there. Now you can't do that with a lot of waxes. A lot of them will spot. As soon as you get a spot on it, it shows up. So that's basically how I finish all my work. That would need to go to next speed. I won't change it. Just that's the finish. This is a swan's down mop or a very, very soft cotton mop. It's quite soft. That originally was 4 inches, but it's got a little bit smaller due to use. Now we have to finish, but if there are any questions about what I've talked about tonight or anything that we're doing here finishing wise? I know we ran through that last bit. Yes,
How long do you leave your teenager with alcohol on when you ignite it?
When you put it onto the surface of the wood, here, you get the rag and put it on, you light it fairly quickly. Now, a few warnings, and this is from experience. Right, this is from experience. You do not light the match with the same hand as you put it on. Now, you might laugh, but that is serious. That's what experience is talking about.
How about burn time? You just let it burn itself
Yes,
up?
and the next thing is you never test to see that the surface has stopped burning with the same hand that's got the methylated spirits on either. Sometimes the flame is still going and you don't see it. And from experience I really worked that one out too. But it's basically you float and light it at the bottom and just turn it around so it doesn't burn any points on the surface. A couple of things you do, you work in someone else's workshop when you do it. You watch carefully that you don't spill anything into the well of your lathe, because what can happen, the flame can go down into the well of your lathe as well and catch fire amongst the shavings if you have too much excess. But I normally try to put it on with one hand and I light the match with the other one. When I'm demonstrating, I'll get someone else to do it. But I don't do that with all my work. But for finishing pieces that what I call to a gallery finish and something that is more a piece that's going to be seen on the mantelpiece to be looked at and to be appreciated as against a bowl which is going to be used. I wouldn't go to the same distance in the sandpaper in the bowl as I did with this. Any other questions?
How do you separate?
This, just get a bandsaw and cut it across about here, the bandsaw. And then sand. Sir?
24-inch handsaw. Taking the bird off the scraper.
Taking the burr off it?
Yeah, why?
Well, the thing is that when you're going with the burr that's on the scraper, you do not do the cutting of the burr. You need to use, if you're going to remove the burr, you need to get a lap stone and actually go like that onto the surface, like that, and then come back and just sharpen it up. This is not a scraper, I'm not showing you that. Yes. Well, it's going to break off anyway, and I want to get a better edge anyway. Any other questions?
Thank you, Vic. Before we go, a free will offering will be taken for the wood tonight. I think John Schrader, are you back there? Will you collect the money? Okay. If you see a piece of wood that you're willing to donate some money to, donate the money to John Schrader. Those of us who brought it don't want to carry it back home, so that we need to be out of here by 10. Everybody has to be out by 10 o'clock. We have to stack the chairs, so please stack the chairs. Pick up your chair and we'll put them off to the side.